Hello everyone, this is Mr. Molo with lesson 8-3, solving systems by elimination. So we've already done solving systems by graphing, we've done solving systems by substitution. This one is called elimination, and honestly this is my favorite and probably the easiest, and it's a good thing that this is probably the most asked question on the test is the elimination style questions. So just like how we talked about substitution means to replace, eliminate means to take out or cancel. So that's very important. For our first step, we want something to eliminate. And with math, something eliminating, that means we want it to be 0. So you'll notice on all these questions, either the x or the y will have the same number. So here I have a 2x and a 1x, so that's not the same. But here I have a 3y and a 3y. One's negative, one's positive, but they're both 3's. So that will be the case for every single question. Even if we fast forward ahead to the homework questions, or even these, we have 6x, 6x, 3y, 3y, 2x, 2x. All of them have something that is the same. 2y, 2y, 3x, 3x, 5y, 5y. So that's very important with these kind of questions. So this kind of looks the most difficult because, when we did graphing, both of them said y equals for graphing. We've seen that before. When we did substitution, one of them said x equals or y equals. Here, none of them say x equals or y equals. So it looks the scariest, but in all honesty, it's probably the easiest. So here, when we find out which one's the same, so our y's are the same, one's a negative 3y, one's a positive 3y, honestly, the first step is the hardest. So I have a negative 3 and y, and then I have a positive 3y. The first step, I'd say, is probably the hardest. We need to decide whether we add or subtract to get them to eliminate. And there's kind of a hint right there because it says the answer. But let's do both scenarios. So if I subtract negative 3 minus a positive 3, ends up being a negative 6y. So that's not what we want. It's not called solving systems by getting negative 6y. It's called solving systems by elimination. So we're going to end up adding these two together. Negative 3y plus a positive 3y is 0 or 0y, but it doesn't matter. So we just write 0. So they eliminate. So very important. After this first step, you get something to eliminate. You get that 0 there. We want that to be a 0. Okay? And then since we're adding, we really add everything else. So add 2x plus x, 3x. We just did this, negative 3y plus 3y, 0. 12 plus 6, 18. And then it just turns into a one-step equation. 3x equals 18. So no adding on both sides, no subtracting, none of that stuff. It's literally just divide each side by 3, divide each side by 3. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Okay? And then we have to go back and plug in 6 for x to figure out what y is. So here's where it gets a little bit more complicated, but because finding the first answer was so easy, it's okay that the second one's a little more complicated. So you can plug it into either one, the top equation or the bottom equation. You'll see the book chose to do the bottom equation. X plus 3y equals 6. Well, we just found out x was 6. So 6 plus 3y equals 6. And then subtract 6 from both sides. So 6 minus 6 is 0. 3y equals 0. 0 divided by 3 is 0. So you end up with y equals 0. Okay. Let's look at some of these your turns. And I'm going to do them on a big sheet of paper so I can actually see it. So I have 6x minus 3y equals 6. So this is number 8 on the your turn. And then I have 6x plus 8y equals a negative 16. Okay, so same thing. I have 6x and 6x. They're the same. So like I said, hardest part is deciding whether you would add them to get them to cancel or subtract them to get them to cancel. Well, if I add 6x and 6x, that just gives me 12x. So again, it's not called get 12x, it's called elimination. So I'm going to subtract everything. 6x minus 6x is 0. So we eliminated the x's. They're gone. Okay, negative 3y minus 8y is negative 11y. And then 6 minus a negative 16 turns into plus plus. That turns into 22. And like I said, we have one step after this. Divide each side by negative 11. And so we figure out y equals a negative 2. 22 divided by negative 11 is a negative 2. And then remember, we have to go back in and now solve for x. So we just found y. Now we have to solve for x. Again, we have the choice from either the top equation or the bottom equation. Bottom equation just has smaller, the top equation has smaller numbers. So I'm just going to go with the top equation. So 6x minus 3y equals 6. And we just found out y was negative 2. So I'm going to rewrite that with a negative 2 then. So now I have negative 3 instead of y. We put that negative 2 there. And negative 3 times negative 2 is a positive 6. Lots of 6's in this problem. So it's a plus 6. So I minus 6 from each side. So I'm left with 6x equals 6 minus 6 is 0. Divide each side by 6. Divide each side by 6. 0 divided by 6 is 0. Okay. Let's do one that's not going to end up with a 0. So let's look at number 9 on the your turn there on page 246. So I got 4x plus 3y equals 19. And then 6x plus 3y equals 33. All right, so same thing. Hardest step, I believe, is this first step. Am I going to add my equations together to get them to eliminate, or am I going to subtract them to get them to eliminate? So my 3y and my 3y are the same. So if I add 3y and 3y, that gives me 6y, not what I want. So I'm going to subtract because 3y minus 3y eliminates. It gets me 0. So I'm going to subtract everything. 4x minus 6x is a negative 2x. 19 minus 33 is a negative 14. So I end up with negative 2x equals negative 14. Divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. And x equals a positive 7. Okay, same thing. I have a choice of the top equation or the bottom equation. Again, I'm just going to pick the top one because it has smaller numbers. It's easier to get. It's going to be easier to multiply by. So I have 4x plus 3y equals 19. And we just figured out x was 7. So instead of 4x, I'm going to do 4 times 7. Okay, 4 times 7 is 28. Plus 3y equals 19. Okay, so plus 28. So I need to subtract 28. So 3y equals 19 minus 28 is a negative 9. Divide both sides by 3. Divide both sides by 3. We figure out y is negative 9 divided by 3, up negative 3. Okay. Let's go backwards a step and look at one of the your turns that I missed from before. So let's look at, let's see, number 3 on those your turns on page 244. So actually, no, let's look at number 5. Sorry. So I got 6x plus 5y equals 4. And negative 6x plus 7y equals 20. Okay, so now here I have 6x and a negative 6x that are the same. My y's aren't the same. It's 5 and 7. So same question. Do I add or do I subtract to get them to eliminate? So would 6x plus a negative 6x eliminate and give me 0? Or would 6x minus a negative 6x give me 0? So remember here, minus minus turns into a plus. So it's really 6x plus 6x, which would be 12x, so that's not 0. So we would need to add 6x plus a negative 6x gives me that 0. So we're going to add on this equation. So I wanted to do another one that wasn't subtracting like the other ones. Okay, so everything needs to get added, added, added. So we just said 6x plus a negative 6x eliminates, it gets to 0. 5y plus 7y is 12y. 4 plus 20 is 24. Okay, then it's 12 times y, so we divide each side by 12. 24 divided by 12 is 2. Okay, same thing, I'm going to pick that top equation, smaller numbers. So 6x plus 5y equals 4. And then since we just found out y was 2, instead of 5y, I'm going to put 5 times 2. And we know 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, so now I have 6x plus 10 equals 4. So the opposite of plus 10 is minus 10. So 4 minus 10 is negative 6. And then last step, as always, is to divide. So negative 6 divided by 6 is a negative 1. Okay. Let's do one more where we have to add. So let's do number 4 there on page 244. So I have 2x plus 2y equals negative 2. And then I have 3x minus 2y equals 12. All right, so same thing. My y's are the same. I have a 2y and a negative 2y there. My x's are not the same. It's a 2x and a 3x. So we are going to add to get them to eliminate. And there's kind of a rule there. If you have different signs, you add. If you have the same sign, you subtract. But I think it's just easier just to kind of do the math and say like, oh, okay, 2 plus a negative 2 is 0. 2 minus a negative 2 isn't 0, so that's not going to eliminate. So we're going to do 2x plus 3x is 5x. 2y plus a negative 2y eliminates. That gets to be 0. And then negative 2 plus 12 is 10. Then divide each side by 5. Divide each side by 5. You get x is 2. Again, I'm going to pick that top equation. I feel like I've picked it a lot, but the top equation just has smaller numbers. Although lots of 2's in this equation. So 2 times x, and we just figured out x was 2. So we're going to add another 2 to this equation. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 2y equals a negative 2. And then since it's a plus 4, I'm going to end up subtracting 4 from each side. So 2y equals negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. The last step, as always, is to divide. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Okay, so again, you'll see from your homework, it'll look complicated, but like I said, because each of these are the same, it ends up being not too bad. So if I would have showed you these problems, last week when we started chapter 8, you would have said that these are the hardest ones. But in reality, as long as you get something to eliminate, it ends up being not so bad. And honestly, my favorite way to do these problems, and like I said, based on the test, most of the questions are going to be set up like this for elimination. So if you understand today's stuff, you should be set pretty good for the test.